Ready? Oh, so we're going. All right. Good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition Radio, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where Henry is the amazing techie who's laughing at me right now because I'm always screwing things up. But that's the way it goes, I suppose. Anyway, one of my favorite things about this show, which I say pretty much on a regular basis, but today is especially true, is we bring on really some of the most amazing people who have so much to give, and you know, through their lives and through their stories, they are now here to serve and to help us to live bigger, better lives and to be of service. And that's what I love about everybody we bring on. I think to date, everybody we've brought on is an entrepreneur doing really freaking cool things. And so today we have Justin Frandson, who just has the biggest brain. It's so much fun to be surrounded by a big brain. So Justin, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Nikki.
So I've seen Justin speak a couple of times. And so if you are watching, when you're finished with this, take it, share it. This is something that everybody needs to know about. And it's just freaking cool. Well, cool and scary. But before we get started, as always, Justin, we start the show with gratitude. So we want, I believe gratitude can change the world. So what are you grateful for?
My family.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, family's good. Family is grounding, which we'll talk a lot about. Family is grounding. I'm super, so same grateful for my family, but this is a long weekend. Our long weekends like this, we always go to the mountains where we are away from the craziness of the city. So I'm stoked about that. Glad to get away. We've been rushing around all morning, packing our gear, getting stuff going, getting the dogs ready, and we're going to be heading out and heading to the mountains. So that's what I love to do. All right. So Justin is the founder of Athleticism.com. Yes, as well as EMFRocks.com. The things that are most interesting and scary at the same time to me is the EMFs, which are the electromagnetic frequencies. And I'm seeing this, as I'm paying attention, so much more in my practice, which is just craziness. So, sorry, let's start with your story. Instead of getting into that, I kind of just went off because it's on the top of my brain and I can't wait to talk about it. But I want to understand, and I like everybody else to understand because I think it's relatable, how you got to this place, what you do, what your story is, and how you got here.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. Well, I'm a practitioner like yourself, where I started Athleticism.com almost 30 years ago, working with amateur and professional athletes. And about over a dozen years ago, I saw them breaking down from this wearable technology. And so I was doing nerve work and fascia and whole body, whole brain stuff, like really out of the box coordination stuff. And when I see an athlete getting disconnected from the wearable technology, that really brought me to dive into it. And one of them in particular had a smartwatch on his wrist. And he said, Justin, I have pain in my wrist. And I said, well, which wrist? He said, he pointed right to where the watch was. And I said, take the radiation off your wrist. Yeah. And his pain went away. And so that was literally it. I just said, we got to dive into this topic and understand how we are electric beings, how we're one with nature, and how these non-native waveforms are different.
Yeah. So this is super interesting because everybody's wearing one of these watches. It's their phone. It checks their health and their heart rate. It checks their sleep, right? Everybody's wearing one of these watches. And
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they're literally self-inducing radiation at levels we've never seen for I don't know what it is for.
Ever?
for
Ever,
someone, yeah. No,
right?
well, for someone to tell them how they feel, how they slept, how many steps they took, when it's time to eat. I mean, we got to get out of this meta universe and get into connecting with nature, like you're going to do this weekend. Get connected to God, get grounded by nature, and know how you feel. We don't want a device to tell us how we feel.
That's so true. I love that. So let's back up a little bit because I was introduced to what you do right about a year ago. So it was, if anybody watches the show, you know how much I love Cellcore. And so Justin was at the Cellcore conference where we learned really cool outside of the box, amazing, mind-blowing things. And this was one of them. Of course, I knew of electromagnetic frequencies and how damaging they are. But it also, some of it is like, is it real? Is it conspiracy? We're now at 5G. What does this mean for us? And so this year at the conference, I ran into Justin and had already had you scheduled for the show. But what you told me was read The Invisible Rainbow to give a background. And so it was read the first 100 pages because what's a 400 or 500 page book, right? I mean, it's
huge.
It's a big one, but I'm excited to get through the rest of it. So I've gotten through 90 pages, so I'm almost there, but I can't wait to read the rest. I never thought that I would want to read about electricity. It's like so not me, but this is like bioelectricity. So, kind of anytime there's the word bio, I'm like, okay, I want more. So I want to can you give a little bit of a background on your research, which includes the invisible rainbow, but your research as to what it was prior to electricity, like prior to the discovery, right, of electricity, 1800s?
1889 was the first year we rolled out electricity into our homes.
Okay, yeah. Oh, some of the pictures that they show, I mean, we think we have a lot of wires now. The wires at one time that like shaded the cities because there were so many wires. This is amazing. Anyway, give me a little bit of your understanding of the history of electricity and what has transpired.
Definitely, Nikki. The book is awesome, The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Firstenberg, because it categorized the history of electricity and life. And it directly correlates every shift in our electromagnetic blanket of an atmosphere to us adapting to it. And before that 1889, when electricity was brought into our lives in a close proximity, when people got sick, they correlated it with solar flares, atmospheric pressure shifts, cosmic shifts in our atmosphere. And then once we put electricity in the homes, they called the flu before that because it would fly in and fly out with those solar flares. And then once electricity hit our homes, it became seasonal. It was here to stay. And then from then on, every major man-made rollout of radio waves was correlated with disease. So 1918, the Spanish flu, we broadcasted radio waves for the first time ever in a large scale. Then World War II, radar, satellites in the Van Allen belt for the Hong Kong flu, and then everyone knows the last several years was the rollout of 5G.
It's fascinating. So one of the things that really helped to bring it home for me in the book was thinking about how it is that, specifically the flu, right? But how it is that it comes and goes seasonally, right? All at the same time, all at the same place. And one of the things that so it comes and then it's gone, including on ships, like our military ships or whatever. So you've got these people who have been away from land for months. What happens? They also get the flu. So it just made me really sit and think of, there's so many questions I wish I had them and I need to write them down, but this whole list of questions about, when one of the researchers was like, how come we can't answer this list of 10 or 15 questions about the flu, the most researched condition or virus, if that's what you want to call it? That's what they tend to call it. We can go in a whole other tangent with that one. But so how is it that we have no idea about this? And I just find it so amazing. Yes?
Oh, for sure. And this goes back to Louis Pasteur versus Béchamp. And Pasteur, we got pasteurized milk from him, but before he died, he recanted all of his science. And he said, look, I was just getting paid to sell this and this fear as, information. He's like, Béchamp is the real scientist. Follow him, because he was studying twins. And so he was looking at bioterrain and saying, hey, if one twin wasn't well, that was because of his bioterrain. There wasn't a germ that was causing him to be that. And if he wasn't well, there was an environmental factor in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
So it's that germ theory, versus terrain theory, right? So
Exactly.
much of this is we're blaming outside factors when, yes, there are always going to be outside factors. And I think that's a big part of this conversation, because magnetic frequencies aren't going to go away. So how do we support ourselves, our bodies, our internal environment to learn, help our bodies to deal? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's so new, and it's the people like you who are sort of helping us try to understand. But the things that we're seeing, and so help me with this for today. At least two things: our homes, our environment. What are we seeing that is impacting us? And then what are you seeing as far as in clinic, how people are being impacted by EMFs?
Yeah, definitely. So, Nikki, let me just ask a question back to your audience and say, what is your environment? And the answer is it's literally everything around you. And it can actually kill you instantly, or you can thrive in it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to lean in on this air. Let's talk about the air. And we don't think of the air as much as our environment, unless it's a pollutant where you could see it or smell it. Like you're in LA, it's polluted, you can smell the industrial stuff, you can see the smog. That's the only time we equate our air as being a pollution. Mm-hmm. So that's a really challenging thing, because when we're dealing with these electromagnetic fields and frequencies, they're invisible waveforms, and they're literally one-directional waveforms. So they're a different design of a waveform than we are designed to be.
So it's not natural, correct?
It's not natural.
Yeah.
It's not natural. It's polarizing. Mm-hmm. We're designed off of unpolarized scalar waves. That's the name of the wave that it makes us one with the universe. Every living organism has a resonance. That resonance is unpolarized. Nikki, they didn't say stand 6 to 8 feet away from Justin's right ear in a straight line. That's just not how it works. Our biofield goes out equally in every direction. I'm not getting grounded by an earthing from the earth in one spot, and then a foot over I'm out of that resonance. It's an entire resonance. The sun, it's not a laser dot, a one-directional wave. It refracts, of course, but it distributes equally in every direction. And then my favorite example is, if you were to stand above a little water and drop a pebble directly and perpendicularly into a pond, does the splash of that pond go in a straight line to the right?
Nope.
Or to the left?
Nope.
No, it doesn't. It distributes equally in every direction. Yeah. That is because the framework of our entire universe is an unpolarized wave form that we are one with. So when you introduce these non-native one directional waveforms. They're polarizing. They chip away at our life force in an array of different ways. So I could dive into that. I mean, that's the number of ways it affects us is just a long answer in itself.
Well, I think that it's important to understand that so people can start to think about it. Well, what's going on? We have so much chronic disease, right? So I say disease, dis-ease. Dis-ease can be a whole host of things. And so I'll say my current story is I'm working with a client we're both struggling, right? I'm like, holy smokes, she's got all kinds of stuff going on. We know there's mold. We know there's, parasitic infection, and we're trying to work on these. But she's like, I'm still struggling. So 2 weeks ago, she came to me and, we're just sort of chitty-chatting, and she says, yeah, just came back, went camping. It was so great. Had so much fun, and then we moved on. 10 minutes later, I see your face. And I was like, okay, you were camping. Where were you? She's like, we were out in Moab. So no cell phone, no nothing. She's like, absolutely nothing. I said, how do you feel? Her answer was, that's why I go camping, because I feel 800 times better. And I went, wow. Oh, crap. Okay. So so I started, talking to her about all of this, and I told her that we're going to have the show today, so I can send her the show today. Have another client who's super, super struggling, and she's going camping this weekend. She's like, I'm not looking forward to it. I said, what I need for you to do is take it as this is a time for you to pay attention to your body. How do you feel? Love on it, love on your body, but journal. Are you noticing changes in your GI, in your headaches, in, the ringing in your ears, right? She has these horrible ulcers, constant ulcers in her mouth for years and years and years. She can't eat. I mean, it's awful. So anyway, those are just my two that come to me that have been just in the last couple of weeks that we've been talking about, and is this playing a really big role in that? And so I think people need to understand, what do we look for? If we're not getting better, we're doing all of these things, and we're told that we're crazy, and we're told we need antidepressants, and on and on and on and on. What if it's your house and your environment, or it's your house that's making you sick, but you're unable to deal with it, right? So it still goes back to our body. We need to be able to teach our body how to deal with it, and bring the things in to help deal with it. Am I making sense? And I know you know what I mean. Of course.
I want to get back to this, but I want to say this first is the most incredible way we can heal is to get out into nature, and it's free.
Yeah. Right.
And I'll just say it now. There's 5 at least different ways that it helps us. Number 1, we get the Earth's resonance. We get a negative ionic charge. We pull those electrons from the Earth's resonance. They call it the Schumann resonance. It supports our electron transport chain that gives us energy. So right out of the gates, that's one of the first mechanisms where we derive energy. We get number 2 from the light of the sun. We are basically a holograph of light. Our bodies are. We do really well with light and or sound. And because of those frequencies, we feel our body as well, as Dr. Zach Bush would say, from the air. So when you're breathing in those microbiomes, that's real stuff. We're getting minerals because there's waves and particles in the air that are feeding us. And then hopefully we get minerals and more nutrients from our food, and as well as water. And then with the water, we get the conductivity of it all. If we're missing any one of those 5 elements, Nikki, we become a gateway for dis-ease. Just as similar as, I'll use the analogy of a car battery. If it runs out of water, the car battery dies. We have a few more mechanisms where we don't die right away, but it's a really, really great concept to grasp.
Yeah. So I tell people this a lot. At minimum, I mean, yes, all of those things. But I just go outside and walk in the grass. And people are like, why? You know, and it's all of these free things. It's, you know, breathing properly also, you know, I mean, you were talking about breathing, but breathing properly so you're not sitting in this constant fight or flight, right? I mean, all of these things that are free and simple that I don't always do either. This is all a practice, but having the information, having the knowledge, knowing that you can do it is the first step to going and doing it. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, did you all hear what Nikki just said? It's free. Go outside, touch a tree, get grounded. It's free. Get grounded by nature. That's our nature.
Yeah.
And the reason why you do it is because of all these signs and symptoms of disease. So let me dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So it all starts with mitochondria dysfunction. That's why Nikki and I speak the same language, and that's what CellCore was all about. Dr. Martin Paul out of Washington State University discovered that the gateway for our cells to derive energy is disrupted instantly with low-level EMF, even milligauss levels of electricity, 50 to 60 waves per second, a really low-level bandwidth. It still messes with our mitochondria. The more technical name is that's the voltage-gated calcium channels that are disrupted. It lets positive calcium into a negative cell, and it causes tremendous cell and DNA damage, single and double strand breaks. It destructures water, dehydrates you. It disrupts your endocrine system, so you don't get these deep sleeps.
Yeah.
And you're not connecting to God. It calcifies your pineal gland. So you're seeing all those right out of the gate just because your mitochondria, that powerhouse of your cell, is not allowed to derive energy. That's why people break down, and it's a slow cook process. Now, from there, I see level 1, 2, and 3, Nikki. Level 1 is all cognitive. Lack of focus, memory, anxiety, fatigue, stress, headaches, ringing in the ears. That the behavioral challenges that you will see in a workplace, per se, or in relationships, what have you. It's all
In schools?
from non-native waveform.
In schools?
In schools. Oh, yeah, in schools, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge button too. We've spent all this money hardwiring these schools and our homes, and now we're going away from it. And now companies are starting to roll back out, thank goodness, fiber optic, because it's faster. It's safer, it's more reliable, and there's mental health challenges. So we got to get back to where we were with that. Now, level 2, Nikki, is more your non-trauma concussion symptoms of nausea, vomiting, muscle twitches to seizures, rashes on the skin, bloody noses, ringing in the ears. I mean, these are what we saw in the Havana cohort, which was the first attack of U.S. Embassy workers on foreign soil in Havana, Cuba, and China with microwave targeted radiation at them. And they did multiple segments on 60 Minutes with it. And then you go into the bigs: cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, and the big one that we're seeing now, kind of we talked to before we got on air, is infertility.
Yeah.
All of those
Yeah.
are what we're seeing at record levels. And every one of those on the bar graph has gone up exponentially. And yeah, fake food came in for diabetes. But the other thing is every single one of these, Nikki, I've seen clinically, personally, in the last over a dozen years in this space with my clients.
It's crazy because we all know, I mean, there are lots of factors, but I think it kind of goes back to, a couple of things. You know, we have, I think the easiest way, what we hear a lot is we've got our bucket, right? And so if you've got your bucket, and once it starts to overflow, we start to get really serious symptoms. But we're struggling even before that. One of the things that I find super interesting is that I know, because I love genetics and looking at the genetics and the various SNPs and that kind of thing, and SNPs being variants, sort of genetic epigenetic variants, but that we have some people have various genetic variants that make them more predisposed to being sensitive to electricity. In the book, which I found so fascinating, because this was prior to that, to understanding that we have this, potential genetic makeup, some of us do. I don't remember what the stat was, but it was 20 or 30% of the population was sensitive to electricity, that they sort of assumed back then. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've had these SNPs, but now we have the electricity, and they're starting to express, and so it expresses dis-ease. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think of what we talked about off air as well. Is think about if all those signs of dis-ease have increased at record levels over the last 140 years. What is the next 140 years going to look like? Because we're holding, radiation in our hands with these cell phones, and then we put laptops over our laps, and a lot of people are driving electric cars, which we'll get into that topic.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we have smart meters on our homes, which are basically a two-way router. It's like a cell tower on your home, and this Internet of Things, and then this just absolutely insane, fraudulent, if you will, rollout of satellites as a solar system in our atmosphere. Like, this isn't, we're already connected. The craziest thing that I can say is if there's approximately 8 billion people on the planet, and already over 5 billion of them have smartphones and are on social media, why in the world do we even think we need to roll out another 100,000 satellites to radiate the crap out of the world? It is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
We're already connected. We're already there. So when is enough enough?
Yeah, it's true. And I wanted to comment too, I'm going to jump back just a second, on the infertility rates, where what I find so fascinating and horrifying, is that I think it's been in the last 40 years, male fertility rates have dropped 50%. I think that's right. But it's huge. It's huge. We're seeing, we're seeing people who are constantly struggling, who are should be otherwise healthy people, who are struggling to get pregnant. And two, I think that we don't think as much about the men as we do the women. It's just sort of a societal thing, but we've got to start, because it's affecting women, it's affecting men, and we're seeing it. I mean, it's all in the data. And it's just, I was going to go off on a whole other tangent that I probably shouldn't, but.
Well, Nikki, let me jump in on that one for a second. This whole thing about fertility, I feel one of the most evil marketing plans was the rollout of laptops. Let's put a router and a battery over everyone's reproductive organs. And market it and sell it and throw it in movies and on commercials. And this is absolutely destroying guys' sperm counts, and then women's ovaries absorb 10 times the amount of radiation than any other part of the body. Guys can reproduce their sperm. It's still going to have mutations in it. It's like not great, but women don't. They keep their ovaries for the lifetime. So if you're messing with that mechanism of the body, we're going to see a lot of infertility.
Yeah, agreed. Do you think it's enough to have, so if you have like a, one of those little lap desks, have your computer on one of those, is that sufficient?
Yes, so every inch away from the body is way better. What I would really ask people to do is just hardwire. Just have a wire, like literally hardwire. My computer's hardwired right here. My phone's on airplane mode right now. I don't have any wireless signals in my environment. So let's understand how to identify the stressors and then how to fix them so that we can hardwire them. Because when there's less of the speed of the waveform, it's going to be a longer, slow cook process. And then you're not going to start to compound the stressors with even stronger stressors like we're doing now at record speeds.
Right.
So the other thing, hey, if you're going to put a laptop on your lap, like we have a Faraday bag for EMF Rocks, like literally put that under your computer. It's an 8x8. It's not going to take over the whole floor of the laptop, but it's going to deflect a lot of that radiation the other way. And then have a grounding bag next to you to create that coherence. So there's a lot of ways that we also want to learn how to use technology, because we can coexist with this stuff and we can convert those one-directional waveforms into things that are unpolarized, but we just want to develop proximity protocols and usage protocols with them.
So I definitely want to get into the Faraday bags and the grounding bags. I want to talk about those. I think first, though, because this really hit home for me, and I think it's important for people to think about these things. So for one, the wiring in the walls, which we can't get away from, but the wiring in the walls is full of electricity. But what is it wired to? And so at my house, it's wired to a sleep number bed. And so I think that you are the one who, and I don't remember this, but I feel like you were the one who gave the amount of electricity that a sleep number bed gives off. What is that?
Oh, it wasn't me that gave that specific number, but let's look at it this way, because when you buy a meter to measure electricity and the stressor of it, they sell 3 different types of meters, Nikki. They sell a milligauss meter, which measures 50 to 60 hertz, and I'll convert everything to a wave per second so we can all understand and speak the same language of this crazy electricity world. Then we buy a Stetzer electric meter, which that's the name of it. You could go to stetzerelectric.com and plug it in. It's to read dirty electricity in the spectrum of 4,000 to hundreds of thousands of waves per second. A very mid-range, challenging waveform that's static in the line. That when you have dirty electricity, that's a lot of static. That means that dim switches are in the mid-range and they're trying to request the level of lighting you're requesting, and you have transformers in your LED lights that are again causing static to give you the usage that you're requesting. If maybe rats ate some of the lines of the wiring into your home and they're static, the transformer that's powering all the houses, 12, 14 houses in your neighborhood, maybe that's not properly wired and it's causing dirty electricity through the houses. And then, so you would get a Stetzer electric meter to meter that. One of my favorite meters is about $140. And then you would get a wireless meter, a acoustimeter they call it, that measures the invisible wireless waveforms of a cell phone, of our laptops, all our so-called smart devices, smart meters and such, and cell towers. So these meters measure 50 million to several billion waves per second. And that's how we identify these stressors. So once we can start to identify these stressors, we can start to develop proximity protocols with them.
Okay. So I feel like I want to put something into a little bit of perspective because it made an impact on me, again, going back to the book. But our body, so say, and I think this is right, but if we hold a battery, right, if we hold it on both ends, it actually has an impact on our body. We don't feel it, but it does have an impact.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah, and so it can, I think, speed up our heart rate, and it's obviously pretty minor. But considering that the battery of a small battery can impact our body, the electricity that's going through a sleep number bed, which I have unplugged, and then the batteries in our smart cars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So just to get to the bed thing, finish
Okay.
that before
Yeah,
we get to the electric cars and such. But your levels can be anywhere from 50 waves per second on up into hundreds of thousands of waves per second with bad electricity wiring. That's what I was alluding to with those speeds. So we don't know the health of your home, but if you're plugging something into the electrical grid, you're going to get a lot of electricity coming back at you. And yes, we are electromagnetic beings. So this is a great example. If are you familiar with muscle testing?
No, yeah.
And what we call it in our industry is applied kinesiology. So if I were to muscle test you, I can test the strength of your basically reflexes of the body. And your body, because it's electrical, will tell me if it's strong, it likes something. If it's weak, it might not like something. If I was doing a surrogate and testing your dog, and you were the surrogate, you were the middle person, if I said, hey, Nikki, I'm going to plug this metal fork into the electrical outlet, and then I'm going to hold you, and then you're going to hold your dog. Would you let me do that?
No.
No way, because we'd all get electrocuted, because we're electromagnetic beings, and we act like capacitors where we absorb and give away those energies. So if we're taking in these waveforms and we're storing extra voltage in our bodies, we got to understand what levels we're being introduced to, especially when we're sleeping and having that close proximity to us.
Well, and so I still want to get to the electric cars, but it leads me to, when you're talking about the dogs, obviously, dog person, I got 3 dogs. They sleep either on our bed or on the floor by the bed. I have one now who likes to sleep under the bed. And so, for those of us who, we have our kid. Oh, we could go so many directions. We've got all this Bluetooth stuff with our kids and our babies and that's all surrounding that. So how is this impacting? I mean, I know it's the same, but are you noticing or seeing, is there anything that you can comment on when it comes to kids and dogs and animals and all of that?
Yeah, so let me start with what we're seeing right now and talk about a couple things at a time. And I want to get into the pets and the as well next. But every single one of those challenges, especially level 3, I've seen. So we had suicide here in Corona del Mar a few years ago, and that kid lived on the street in Port Street. So it was like an Aaron Brockovich situation where the whole neighborhood, at least chunks of it, were really improperly wired. On another street, and everyone on his street has cancer, autoimmune, and the list goes on and on. On another street in the same neighborhood, I had a client that their child got childhood diabetes. And I said, you guys, this whole grid's improperly wired. Why don't you head out of town so we can fix the grid? You get with the electric company. We got to do a lot with this house. And so they flew to Fiji. When everyone turned on their Wi-Fi on the airplane, the mom sitting next to their 12-year-old son with childhood diabetes, he wasn't eating anything. His glucose spiked 200 points and he gets a bloody nose when everyone turns on the Wi-Fi.
Unreal.
And 3/4 of the way, it's a long flight. When the kid was sleeping, half the people turn on their Wi-Fi. He got a bloody nose again when half the people turn on the Wi-Fi, and he was asleep. So what we're seeing is that these are all environmental factors affecting us. And it's just massive. We don't think about it, but our bodies are affected by these radiations. And it might be more sensitivity for some people, depending on their age, their predisposition, how much exposure they had when they were younger, their level of exposure. and their level of toxicity with heavy metals, especially in their body. Everyone will be different on that. But if you take a compromised person that was in a stressor for 10, 12 years, and then you put them in a capsule, and then you turn on 150 routers, they're going to get level 2, bloody noses and of EMF, disease symptoms.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you something. Anyway, doesn't matter. It just totally went away.
Well, and then real just on the same topic, how crazy is it that in 1918 when we rolled out radio waves that they were the same upper respiratory symptoms that we saw with the rollout of 5G? There's so much correlation with our environment and how we're all being affected by it. So that's how people are. And I've seen suicide. We've seen it all. So there's no scratching your head for me. Now let's go into the pets, because this is a passion for me. I'm a waterman. I live in Laguna Beach, California. I'm in the ocean pretty much every day. When I free dive, I surf, I open water, ocean swim. When I'm in the water and I duck my head under, I can hear when the whales are nearby and when the dolphins are nearby, because the sounds travel so well underwater. The sounds that we would never hear on land that far away, we can hear underwater. I mean, a whale call can go around the earth about a couple times.
Wow.
I believe is what they're saying.
Okay.
These frequencies can travel. When there's an electric foil board, some new guy's just throwing out his new toy and thinks he's so great. It sounds like a radio station turned on static, of the volume all the way up when I go underwater.
What's an electric foil board?
Oh, it's like a stand-up surfboard that's electric. Like an electric engine. When there's an electric engine in our cove, you can kind of ride away with it perpetually. So it's but anything electric, you can hear that frequency, underwater. And the noise is so disturbing. And as Arthur Firstenberg talks about, he has a cell phone taskforce.org. He has multiple organizations and foundations that are fighting this stuff. And he's one of the premier researchers on this. And he went on to say that they want to roll out the Internet of Things underneath the water in the ocean. It would destroy all the marine life instantly. I mean, we're already destroying the bees, the migration of the birds. We're already seeing, I'm seeing it in my neighborhood. I live in a nice neighborhood with houses are spread out. The bees they're just not like they normally are. And when some of our neighbors have bees, we have a few beekeepers. When they have them, they're awesome, but when they don't, they're non-existent. And so it's wild to see how disrupted the animal life is. And dogs really gravitate towards our grounding bags because they feel that coherence, and then that what I call tapping on your shoulder. So if you have your Wi-Fi on, your brain attempts to figure out that bandwidth that's pinging it. So what happens when we sleep is we go into a twilight sleep. Now these pets can hear that bandwidth, so they like to get that normalized. So they'll sleep with the grounding bags. And so that's how I equate. Let's go back to people. When we're in a sleep state, our brainwave states are 1 or below 1 to 8 hertz or waves per second. That's when we're in a delta or theta. Brainwave is a deep restorative sleep that you get with a brain tap or one of these things. That's what those realms of binaural beats or meditations will take your brain into that lower and slower grounded state. These cell phones are pinging us, Nikki, they're at 60 to 90 billion waves per second. That's what 5G is. 4G is 2.45 gigahertz or 2.45 billion waves per second. That's the lowest bandwidth that will start to destructure water. But as you get faster in the bandwidth, it's going to destructure water even more. And that's what we're seeing with our whole epidemic of chronic dehydration in our bodies, as our colleague Gary Lineham will say with Human Garage. And we're seeing, as Dr. Ibrahim Karim, the founder of biogeometry, will say, we're dehydrating our planet as well.
Yeah. So I want to start to dig into what we can do. So besides, just turning everything off and, going out and living in the mountains forever and, all these things that we actually talk about doing. Is that what we want to do? Maybe. But you have some really cool rocks, which is fascinating to even think about. And so I want you to talk about how they work, why they work, what you do with them, where you put them, and all of the details. Because when I saw that last year, I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me rocks are going to help with electromagnetic frequencies? What? So it just sounds crazy, but it's amazing.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I look to get grounded by nature, as we all do, right? And so the one thing is people hadn't figured out how to bring nature's resonance into the home. They attempted with shungite or amethyst or black tourmaline, all these known crystals that have magnetic properties. They just get overrun and they're just not strong enough to create the coherence in our environment as much as our grounding bags do. So yes, I know Dr. Steven Schwartz, bioharmonic technologist, calls me the pet rock king. but our crystals have intelligence. They really do. And it's because they have moisture with the magnetic properties in them. That combination makes them exponentially stronger for EMF protection. So when we mine these crystals, Nikki, we actually seal them. And then they're sealed right away, so they don't oxidize and turn to dust. That everyone else before us, anyone who would try to mine it, they would just turn to dust. So they didn't realize how amazing these products were for EMF protection. And I found out about it through a doctor clinic using it. And so I got the permission and the rights to go direct from the doctor treating his patients with it, because I had a reputation in Newport Beach of working with athletes and then clearing homes. And so I had doctors calling me from all around saying, hey, what are you using? I was using copper and crystals. And I said, hey, what are you using? And he's like, I'm using these crystals and they're amazing. I said, well, I want to get treated. So I went and paid and got treated multiple times. And I brought him into our home. My wife was going through early menopause. She was in her late 40s. And literally her menstrual cycle stopped for 3 months. And she would wake up every night, not sleep through the night, wake up with night sweats. Not until we brought the resonance of the earth from these grounding bags into our home did she start to create that coherence again. Once we did that, her cycle returned. We slowed down the aging process, which is absolutely spectacular. And then she started sleeping in the night, no more night sweats. And so that I knew that was basically, I knew we had something like off the charts special. If we could slow down when you can actually see your clock ticking, that's special.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so a few details about these. Do you have a bag with you?
Yes.
I figured you would. All right. So these are the grounding bags. So here are a couple of things. One thing is I took mine with me. We went to Dallas last weekend and I took one with me on the flight. And everybody wants to open them up. Everybody wants to, I'm like, really? My husband got really frustrated. But they all want to open them up. I was afraid they're going to want to open up the paper bag, which they didn't, thankfully. They just looked at them. So I want to know, for one, how you deal with that, because I know you take them with you. I also want to know where you put them and how you use them. So on a sleep number bed, how you use them, where you put them, how you put them in your house, how you put them around your desks, all of these details. So, and I know it's on your website, so obviously go to emfrocks.com. But those are, it can be a little bit tricky in really understanding how to get the best use out of them.
Yeah. So a couple things. So yes, we have this inner brown bag of crystals with a window in it so you could see what they look like. When you travel and carry it on, take this inner bag out, put it in a tray with the crystals facing upward, and then as you go through TSA and this goes through the x-ray machine, tell the guys, they're not that sharp at tools, tell them like, I have crystals, and then they look at them and they let you go. If you keep it inside the grounding bag as we deploy it, they'll slow you down a lot and look at it. So that's that. But for the protocols with using the grounding bags, we sell these through doctor clinics all around the country. The doctors are the ones that are giving us these protocols. We work with the likes of the docs that are in the community of Cellcore and so much beyond that. Yep. It's like some of the top chiropractic doctors, on and other modalities as well. And a lot of the chiros are muscle testers, so they can test the stuff. And a lot of them have unique ways of testing. So they've tested our products. Dr. Rodney White out of Nebraska tested the grounding bags to help his deep sleep improve up to 60%. Wow. So his deep sleep went from 45 minutes to 100 minutes for 3 months straight. He did a 3-month test. Wow. No one does a 3-month test. So we've had some incredible testing, and the market's really spoken on how impactful these are. So we've established protocols from all the feedback that we've received, and at least one grounding bag on your bed, you'll sleep up to 60% deeper. You can put it on your bed or underneath your bed. Just make sure it's towards the head of the bed, and it has to be touching the bed. So you want it touching the bed to ground that out, because essentially what it's doing is it's converting these waveforms into something that are unpolarizing, that our bodies accept. And when you bring more of the grounding bags into your environment, you create more of a coherence. So we just start with clearing a bed or a desk or car seat with at least one. And then to clear 2,000 square feet of a home, we require 5 grounding bags together on the floor of your home, centrally located, and that will create that coherence in your space. Because every one of us can pick up at least 20 some signals of neighbors, right? Even if our home's hardwired, and then we're all using cell phones at this day and age. So that'll create the coherence. You want 7 grounding bags together if you have solar in your home. You want 7 grounding bags together behind the driver's seat if you have an electric car.
So electric cars is like obviously the rage, but they are really scary, right? I mean, do you think that they're scary? To me, if you've got to have 7 in a small car to keep you safe from the EMFs, that is just like over the top electricity, EMF exposure, scary stuff.
High levels of dirty electricity. That's why we need so many grounding bags. This is a necessity now. This isn't anything more than a necessity is to get grounded by nature. With the electric cars, we had a colleague that was, and I work with professional athletes, this guy was doing the same, and he was doing blood work for him. He got hired by military special forces to measure their special forces guys. They had 18% lower testosterone for any guy and girl driving an electric car. He threw that in, like, just to throw it in. He had no bearing on what it was going to show. It was the single biggest marker change on his blood reading.
Interesting.
18% lower testosterone. What the batteries do is they're storing electricity. They're giving you the usage of electricity that you're requesting when you're idling, when you're accelerating from 0 to 10, from 10 to 20, from 60 to 80, however fast you drive. And then when you reverse, you're getting so much static because it can't normalize that level. There's got to be static, and you're sitting on top of that. Every home that I've metered with solar, I'm going to divert to 1 second on solar. It is off the charts with dirty electricity, but then when you have an electric car and then they plug that Tesla charging unit, if their home doesn't have solar and it's a healthy home, but they have an electric car, it blows out the whole grid of their whole house.
Wow.
Which is crazy. So
Yeah.
back to electric cars, 18% lower testosterone, you're sitting on a massive battery. They mine it with coal, cadmium, all these precious minerals. They're using fossil fuels, what we call fossil fuels, to do the mining extraction process, precious minerals. You're using more of the electrical grid that everyone's touting and saying, hey, use less electricity, but they're mandating in California and other places to use electric vehicles and use more of the grid you have to use the grid to use the vehicle. It's just, there's no foundation just at all with this. It's complete ignorance and stupidity.
Yeah.
And it's a fad. It'll go away at some point. Their industries are already hurting because people can't charge these things fast enough. They're fire hazards. They don't get more fuel efficient when you're using them. And then the health challenges with it, of course. But there's so many. And then the infrastructure is not there to charge them. It takes forever. But if there's half the population lives in multifamily in the U.S., there never will be infrastructure to support this. So this whole concept of electricity supplied vehicles is absolutely ridiculous and should just go away right away.
Yeah. So quick question about solar. So solar, everybody wants to move towards solar, but say if we were to move off grid, you have to use solar, right? So you're really not getting away from the problem?
Well, if you have the battery and the solar panels on your house, it's going to be really challenging. If you have them further away and you can ground them properly, it's going to be a lot easier. So I would encourage anyone, if you're going to build a home off the grid, at least just avoid putting electricity into the bedrooms. Just don't even wire it for that. And then have the solar and the battery. It's the battery that throws it off.
Okay.
And the panels actually act like a battery, but it's the battery that's really, really disturbing as well, because it's storing that electricity and it's giving you the usage you're requesting. So there's going to be static in the line. So the solar homes that are at meter, that the electric company holds their electricity, not them with a battery on their home. Their homes are healthier.
So interesting. Okay. So I want to have a couple more questions about the bags themselves. And so what you had said was you can put them on your bed. So what I did, or I'm going to tell you what all I did, and you tell me if it's right or not. But I took a bag and I put it kind of between the mattresses at the head. And so it still protects the entire bed. Yes?
Perfect.
And so what about my dogs who are, so maybe they're sleeping on the floor in their beds, a few feet away?
Yeah, so again, that would be the 5 per 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
And that'll help clear them. If you really wanted, you would put one in their bed as well.
That's what I was wondering.
That's the protocol.
Yeah, okay. And so for our desks, I have them on the desk, like right by the wires under my computer and all, because we have a standing desk, both of us do, and it's sitting kind of under there on the desk. Yeah?
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Perfect. As long as it's touching the desk or your chair, you're good.
Okay, cool. And so then, when I get 2 more, I'll then have 5. So it is just as good to have them all together for the entire 2,000 square feet, right? For that entire space, as it is having it right on my bed and under my desk. Or should you do both?
Both. Start with one, at least one on your bed. If the budget's not there to buy a bunch of them, and we have the best price product, it can add up when you fill a house, husband, wife, kids, pets, all that stuff, cars. So, and we do have, just you buy 10, you get one free. We do have opportunities so you can buy a bundle, but start with at least 1 or 2 on your bed. See how you feel.
Yeah.
And then you can add on to that. But I can assure you, you'll sleep so much better. That deep sleep will improve. and the cumulative effect of you getting, even if you have good sleep, you get 3% deeper sleep every night, and you add that up over 10 years, you're going to put yourself in a much healthier position in the long term.
Yeah. So one of the things, you know, that I think is kind of interesting is, so last year you muscle tested me, and so you have your 5 locations that you muscle test, yes?
Four, yeah.
4, okay.
Yeah.
And those are?
The eyes, yeah. So what we found, Nikki, is that our body battery can lose polarity and get decharged from these extraneous polarizing signals. And in addition to that, we can carry stuck toxicity in our biofield of EMF in our biofield, and that messes with the chemistry of our body. So what we see is the eyes, the teeth, the thymus, and your intestine area get decharged. So what we do is we use the grounding bags as a self-home care protocol to recharge your body battery. It's the only product on the market where you can actually detox your body and your biofield of stuck electromagnetic radiation. So, super simple, grab the bag, tap on it. Tap on the bag. Just tapping on it will 10x your energy. Once you tap on it, then let's locally recharge. So we're going to tap with one hand, and then the other hand's going to cover your eyes. And you can do that for 20, 30 seconds. And then you go to the teeth and tap and direct the properties with intent to the teeth. Then the thymus. This is the electrical system for the body. If your thymus is off, you didn't wake up on your energy, you didn't jump out of bed, you get the afternoon fatigue, you get those tired eyes, that's the electrical system being turned off. Let's turn it back down. Thyroid too, you can turn that back on, but let's just stay with the 4 at first, and then let's go to the intestines below your belly button. When you tap with the bag with one hand, the other hand directs it to those areas, or you could cover that area directly with putting your intent to clear that area. You can recharge your body battery and 10x your energy.
Yeah, it's super cool. So last year you muscle tested me, and I think it was my thymus that was off. So I now have 3 bags in my house. Prior to Cellcore, I had 2. So I'm one of those. I'm just kind of building up as I can, right? And this year, though, you muscle tested me, and there were no issues, which is awesome. Yeah. So really cool. I've not done a lot of the tapping. It's a habit that I want to get into. But even if I don't have issues, it's still beneficial to do the tapping. Correct?
Yeah, you can't get enough good, Nikki.
Yeah.
You can't get enough of the good of the resonance of the earth. You can never overdo it. You can't get enough outside. Obviously, you don't want to get sunburn crazy, but you can't get enough good of the resonances of nature into your body to refuel your body.
I've also, and I've not done it in a while, but I need to get back to it, tapped my dogs. I'll take the bag and I'll tap my dogs. So
I love it.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Well, I hate to say that we're over a bit. Not that that really matters, because I would just go on forever. But I'm so grateful that you are doing what you're doing and that you're here. You need to, I almost forgot, tell people where to find you and to find your rocks.
Thank you, Nikki. Yes, EMFRocks.com. All of our curated health products are also sold on Athleticism.com, and we have MCT oil, which it's called lean oil, which helps with the glucose spiking of EMFs, and we have an incredible toothpaste from our sister mine with the minerals just from the earth.
Oh.
It's called Y Clay toothpaste and Campo Beauty essential oil. So we have some of the most incredible products with the resonance of the earth that you could fuel your body with on athleticism.com.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. I hope that you will, I really hope that you'll share this video, share the podcast when it comes out, because I think that it's missed, and we got to start paying attention to this stuff. And if you're struggling, take the steps to at least start to determine if this is part of your struggle, because so many people just can't get past. They're doing all of the things right, and they just can't get past it. And there's just sometimes there are things that we miss. So, I think this is a really important show. Grateful that you were here. Of course, you can find me at tastelifenutrition.com. You can find us here every Thursday, 10 a.m., streaming live on kuhsdenver.com. And if you ever have questions, thoughts, reach out to me. Of course, reach out to Justin, reach out to any of our guests. That's why we're here. We, again, here to serve, here to give you whatever we can, and here to make, do our best to make the world a better place, a good place. It's already a good place. Let's just keep upping it a little bit. So anyway, thank you everybody. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Go hug a soldier. They have given us our freedoms. Thank you again, Justin.
Thank you, Nikki.
Okay, we'll see you later. Appreciate it.